now, through the comfort of their own home on their computer, going to be able to participate and have a ticket and be part of the Live to Lead conference. You do not want to miss this. We're inviting you to learn from a few intentional people that I've invited to share the stage.
Steve Harvey, Kat Cole, Alan Mulali, Farida Bedwe, Alfred Baku, Craig Crushell.
They will all be joining me, and let me tell you why I picked these people. This is not a time for an L2L just to have just people who can speak well. We have to have leaders who model how to overcome adversity well and will help you throughout this incredible crisis. At our virtual event, there will be opportunities to participate in Q&A, live chat with other growth-minded leaders, engage in polls and other audience engagement tools so that you are part of the conversation. We've made this so not only can you join, but your team can join with us also. So join me as we bring you Live to Lead, a virtual event, and together, let's make the most of this year. Let's lead with intentionality. Step into leadership. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever experienced something so wonderful that you just wish that you could involve more of your friends into that experience? Well, Live to Lead is a life changer when it comes to helping you and your team develop your leadership skills and better afford to help and add value to the people of your community. And what's exciting is, I know how good it is that this year, for the very first time, we're going virtual. What does that mean? That means thousands of people who could not maybe attend the live event are now, through the comfort of their own home on their computer, going to be able to participate and have a ticket and be part of the Live to Lead conference. You do not want to miss this. We're inviting you to learn from a few intentional people that I've invited to share the stage.
Steve Harvey, Kat Cole, Alan Mulali, Farida Bedwe, Alfred Baku, Craig Crushell.
They will all be joining me, and let me tell you why I picked these people. This is not a time for an L2L just to have just people who can speak well. We have to have leaders who model how to overcome adversity well and will help you throughout this leaders, engage in polls and other audience engagement tools so that you are part of the conversation. We've
Hello. Good evening and welcome to the Leadership Platform. Today, Saturday, September 26, 2020. And my name is Samuel Eyim of the Center for Transformational Leadership. And I am very excited today because we're going to have a very important discussion on leadership. We have been having this platform for several weeks now, and hopefully we will continue. That will be your platform where leadership ideas are shared and discussed so that you can grow to become a better leader. So I see so many people already joining, and I just want to announce that we are also live on Facebook. You can also join us on Facebook. Please broadcast the Facebook link also to your contacts, and then invite people to join us on this platform. We want to deepen our understanding of leadership. We want to learn and relearn, and we want to grow in our leadership. That is why the Center for Transformational Leadership has created this space for all of us to learn. Now, please introduce yourself in the chat box so that we know you, those who are here. Just give us your name and maybe your organization and where you are joining from. Because I see people from the UK, from US, some from Togo who have joined. So please just introduce yourself in the chat box. Again, as we go on, you may be learning things, you may be experiencing things. We want you to be part of the experience and the learning. So let us know what you are learning. Let us know, how you're feeling. Let us know your ideas. If you agree with a point, if you have another perspective, feel free to share it in the chat box. Make your contributions in the chat box. Share your thoughts, share your learning. We believe that those of us on the platform together have a total knowledge superior to any one of us, even our presenter this evening. But if you have a question, please put that question in the Q&A box, because at the end of the 30-minute presentation, we would have about 40 minutes to discuss and share your views and share your questions. So put your questions in the Q&A box so that we can see them. This evening, we have a very important subject, and that subject is values. What is a place of values in leadership? Do leaders need any values? Are they of any importance? Are we able to develop values that will sustain our leadership? And, we see in corporate offices, when we have the vision and mission and values board, and a lot of organizations have values that they have displayed. They show them in the annual report. How do those values reflect in the day-to-day lives? How does a leader model the values to the people? These are very important questions, and we have a very competent speaker this evening to help us. Sarah Jessie Appiah is a partner at the Center for Transformational Leadership. I met Sarah at our John Maxwell conference in Orlando about 3 years ago. And, we quickly, connected in terms of our, our shared interest to develop leaders. And Sarah is a wealth of knowledge and experience. She's worked for over 30 years with the United Nations. So actually she's still not naturalized as a Swiss. So she's joining us and speaking to us this evening from Geneva, where she lives. And she comes down from time to time to help us. And since we started the platform, she's always been with us, supporting me. Whenever my internet is not working, she's there to take over. And today, so I'm going to try to also support her in the presentation. Sarah is a certified leadership and executive coach. She has a Marshall Goldsmith certification, which is one of the highest in executive coaching. She has a leadership coaching certification from John C. Maxwell, where she's actually an executive director. Sarah also is a specialist and a trainer in what we call the transformational values-based leadership. And I was together with Sarah in Ohio to learn about this transformative idea of how to translate values into our daily lives as leaders and into our organizations. And we're trained on how to teach this and how to inculcate values into our leadership, into our organization. Sarah is very competent. She's actually gone with John C. Maxwell team to is it Costa Rica, is Paraguay, to do national transformation roundtables where John takes a team of John Maxwell coaches to go to a country, and they start with the presidency through all the institutions and teach them values. So she's very well experienced and competent. So I am going to, without too much, she doesn't like what I'm doing, but I'm doing it deliberately because she's too humble. Sarah, one of the values she lives. So today I would from time to time be supporting Sarah as we do the presentation. I'll come in from time to time, but Sarah is going to lead us in discussing leading with values. And I want to thank all of you who are here. Please introduce yourself and let us know you. We love you, we care about you. Our prayer this evening is that the Lord God himself will lead us, guide us, and direct us in our thinking so that those of us on this call would grow in our values as leaders and be able to impact these qualities to others. Thank you very much, Sarah. You are welcome to Ghana. We are ready for you. Take us away.
Thank you so much, Sam. And good evening, everyone. It's great to have you all on the platform. And I feel humbled to be sharing something that is really passionate to my heart. So I hope you will get on this journey with me. And before I do so, I just want every one of you to just hold their two fingers this way, if you can see me, and just bring that to your chin. Okay. So I just want to know whether everybody brought it to their chin or to their cheek. If you brought it to your chin, just type 1. If you brought it to your chin, just type 2. I just want to see whether everybody is focused and attentive here. Okay. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. This is just a little test to see whether we are all present here and we are listening. So let me quickly share my screen and then we'll start off. Here we go. Wonderful. So our topic today is leading with values. Leading with values. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, can everybody see my screen? All right. I am going to move this over here. Wonderful. So the keys we're going to cover today will start first of all by defining what we mean by values. And before we do that, just for us to know where we are currently, what is our current reality, we will touch upon that. And then also define our personal and corporate value, what we mean by culture and how that all affects leadership. Then we will move on to talk about what we mean by transformational value-based leadership. If you see that I have written TVBL, that is what it means, transformational value-based leadership, and what they do and the importance that they are to any organization. We will move on to talk about how we can recognize who are transformational value-based leadership, what are the characteristics that they exhibit, and when they lead organizations or they are part of an organization, how their leadership benefits the organization. Then we'll move on to talk about the work that we have been doing with John in countries as to help them transform and how we can also benefit from this process, and then the next steps. So let's get started with what we mean by values. What is our current reality? So where are we now? Are we in the real world or in a virtual world? Because all of us have been, one way or the other, hit by the pandemic. If that is not the case, we still have challenges as leaders, whether to run the organization because of what has happened, or whether we need to pivot, or whether we need to solve a personal leadership issue. And before I go on, I would just like to put this quote on, which my esteemed colleague, Sam, kindly gave to me, saying, "The nation's morals are like its teeth. The more decayed they are, the more it hurts to touch them." So what is your pain point? And we all know that definitely when you have a toothache, it's something that is painful. Where are we in our leadership today? What is our pain point when it comes to this sort of realities that we are facing? So I'll quickly move on to the definition of values, which I took from the Oxford Dictionary, that says the regard that something is held to deserve the importance, worth, or usefulness of something, principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. And I like the second one better. And John beautifully sums that up by giving this definition: your core values are the deeply held beliefs that authentically describe your soul. I'll repeat that. Our core values are the deeply held beliefs that authentically describe our soul. I'll just let that sink in a little bit, and then we move on to corporate values. I can see I have a little discrepancy a little bit on my screen, but that will be corrected. I'll read that out to you. So what we came up with as a definition for corporate values is that they are the essence of the company's identity, and they are principles, beliefs, and philosophies. So these core values are the things that you and I believe are most important in the way we live and work. And core values support the vision of our company and help shape its culture. So what is the importance of core corporate values in relation to the culture of our organizations? One, they help us in decision-making processes. Two, these core values educate our clients and potential customers about who we are, that is our raison d'être, and help to clarify our identity of the company. If we move on to the next, it really guides us when we are selecting our team, and it determines the acceptable behavior from each team member. Last but not the least, these core values determine the type of investors you attract. I remember when growing up, my mother used to say that birds of the same feather flock together. So who you are is the people you attract. So looking at the principle of the iceberg, what are the behaviors that we do live as individuals or as a corporation or as a business? What we see out there is simply the behavior that we are exhibiting. And this is what we are aware about. So the products that we are showing or the practices that we are undertaking is up on the top. What is underneath and is hidden that nobody sees is what we call the values. They can be good, and this is what is supposed to be good or right. And that we are not sometimes aware of this, as well as our beliefs and assumptions. Are they true versus what the world thinks is true or is the real world? So this is just a picture to give us an idea of how values are hidden and sometimes we are not aware. So we hope that by this evening, we will have been able to shed some light onto what values are. So, who is this leader? If you have these core values for the corporation and then your personal values, as a leader, how can you be defined as a value-based leader? One, your leadership has to be positive. And how does that be? When it's aligned with your personal values and that of the team or the corporation or the organization or the business, then you will be really working towards achieving the goals and mission of the organization. So now that we have defined that, I think I will call upon Sam to give us a little story which is very relevant about values. So Sam, over to you.
Well, thank you, Sarah, very much. And absolutely, values are so important. And when Sarah talks about our realities, we know as business people, in the not too recent global financial crisis, when we found out organizations that have lived for a very long time, their icons crumbling. One of the factors that came up was practices that were not up to standard. Recently in our own country, in Ghana, we've gone through financial crisis, and the reports that come up with organizations and personalities that, you know, sometimes some of the stories that have come up show that what was on the surface was not exactly what is underneath. Eventually, the organization is going to either survive or collapse. And what values do is that, as they have said, they define us. I have this little story of a supermarket where, you know, one day the owners of the supermarket came and they found the shop had been broken into. And they were all terrified. I mean, the gates are broken and everything was down, and they were afraid of what has happened, whether everything has been stolen. Strangely, when they went into the shop, everything was intact. Nothing had been stolen. Even though the doors are broken down, everything was intact. They went around, checked everything. So finally, they heaped a sigh of relief and started set up, put the door there, and customers were coming. So they decided that, okay, if everything is there, let us start work. They started to work, and to their surprise, people come to the counter, and somebody come to the counter with a piece of bread and start screaming, "How can you guys be selling bread for 1,000 cedis?" I said, "But the bread is not 1,000 cedis." But he says, "But that is the price tag on it." And another comes with a television set, and it's he's paying 100 cedis. And they were like, no, the TV is not 100 cedis. But the guy says, but that's the price tag on it. Apparently what the thieves have done is that they have just changed the price tags on everything in the shop. And, you know, put the higher prices on items that are actually very insignificant, and they put high price tags on it. And this is what is happening to us in our world today. We have put so much importance on certain things. Yeah, profit is very important, marketing is important, reputation is important, and all those things. But if we do all those things to the detriment of the core values that drive the organization, what is going to happen is that we are going to just collapse the organization. So Sarah, I wanted to chip in that one. And then just quickly to when Sarah talks about, you know, values determine, you know, the type of investments you make. Values will determine the type of people you make, the businesses you do. It's so true. In my previous life, when I worked for EcoBank as general counsel, I was in charge of corporate governance. There are some countries that our CEO then, Arnold Ekwe, decided that we are not going to go into those countries. Why? Because those countries will require a bribe before we do the investment. And Arnold says, we're not going to bring our capital into your country and pay you a bribe for it. But a lot of businessmen will go and pay a bribe and get a business, and things seem to go well. So Sarah, I just wanted to chip those in to be able to just illustrate the beautiful points that you have made about values and their importance. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. So as Sam has rightly given us good illustration of how values, corporate values are presented by each of, let's say, the EcoBank staff, they had these set of values, no paying of bribes, and everybody went by that in their operations, adhering to the corporate values. So right now, we as leaders, how can we see who or what value-based leaders do? And when they do so, what are the results that we do get? So what they improve performance by, first of all, setting the direction. And when I say setting the direction, what do I mean by that? Is that they create a value statement to guide employees at all levels. This provides both meaning and purpose to employees, managers, stakeholders, and the company as a whole. It allows them to reflect on the values of the company in every decision they make, like just like Sam illustrated. So secondly, they create proactive company culture, and they use appropriate values to create this. This increases the overall value seen by stakeholders and by consumers. This enables the business development and influences gains from supportive stakeholders and consumers to achieve the goals of the business or the company. Thirdly, it helps to enhance the level of education or development of the individuals under their supervision, in the sense that they invest in them. Also, it empowers the employees by developing them into leaders and encouraging other leaders to move in the same direction. In essence, it creates a sense of shared value, that we are all working towards the same goal. Lastly, that is the fourth point, it expands opportunities. And this inspires collaboration and innovation through shared values within the community of that company. Let me move on to the next slide. So what I found at the last meeting that we had with John when we went for mentorship, he really illustrated this very well with these 3 pictures, and I thought I'll share that with you. These are the first 3 points that he talks about for transformational value-based leaders, which is he's written in his book, which is yet to come out in December this year. He says, as transformational leaders, we have to be sitting at the table, crafting what vision we want to bring about in the company. No matter what level that you are in leadership, you have to be at the table. So you drive the vision. And that is exactly what we just saw, saying that you set the direction. Okay, so it's like a waterfall falling down on us. And then one other thing that you do as a transformational value-based leader is that you create the environment. You put a ladder, that's the symbol of the ladder, for people to climb up into the transformational space. You create the environment, you hold it, you develop the leaders around you. And third but not the least, which is the most important, before you are able to get to these 2 areas, you have to have a heart to be transformed. This is the inside job. If you don't understand this and you have not been transformed yourself as a leader, you will not be able to perform the last 2. So the foundation is that transformation begins with you, the individual, or it begins with me, the leader, before I can model it out and help others, because if not, nothing will hold. In the end, it will break. So now let's move on to some of the characteristics, and I'm very conscious of time because I want to move faster, so I'll speak a little bit faster. So there are 4 saying for the characteristics. The person or the leader who is a transformational value-based leader self-reflects. And John really clearly states this in his law of reflection, that you constantly have to be reviewing things that you are doing, including your values, your motives, your decisions, to refine and to improve. Secondly, you have to be self-confident in the sense that you have awareness of your strengths and your weaknesses, and what areas that you are not good at, you get people who are capable to complement you. Thirdly, you have balance. You see all perspective of any task and all decisions for the common good of all. Lastly, you are humble enough. You know where you are coming from. You treat people the same way, equally and fairly. And because you are that humble, that gives you the self-confidence. So this is a bit like a circle. I couldn't get a good illustration of this, so I just type it out this way. And these information or these characteristics, I picked them up from the book, From Values to Action by Harry Kramer. So that's a good resource that you can also add to your life. So the benefits is that when you are practicing these qualities or these skills or philosophy of a value-based leadership, you improve communication with the relationship that you have created with the people. Communication is improved and relationships are stronger. It gives increased productivity because your employees become so engaged in achieving the goals because you have a shared value, and also it improves decision making. So the question I ask myself, or Sam and I want to put to you, is that why do you have to listen to us? We have a little experience. Fine, we got accredited by as a specialist to do this training. And one thing that Sam did not tell you about is the fact that I had to kidnap him to come to this training with me. He hadn't planned, so I kidnapped him and we went on to this training. So, because of this training has given us an international perspective that we do get to go to different countries and get the experience in delivering this sort of training. And not only that, but we do have a global network. And when you come to the John Maxwell team, we are at currently 35,000 all over the world. And those of us who go on this transmission are a select few. So definitely we do help each other in our network. And we are very inclusive, coming from different backgrounds. Yes, still, we have this abundant mindset that when anybody needs help, wherever we are in the world, we do go and we support. And last but not the least, the most important, we live our values daily. And at CTL, what we do is every day, every week, we do have roundtables for us to live our values weekly. I'll explain further down the line what I mean by roundtables. So some of the experiences that we've had. This is just on the left-hand side, just before we did a round table in Paraguay in 2016. And then on the right, these are the first roundtable facilitators that we had in last year. And some of us are, I think, on the call. And then in Costa Rica, on the left-hand side, is an automobile company that we had to go and train for roundtables in their company. And then over here in Accra, 2006, when I came on holiday, I went to a reading group in Labadi, in La, and we had a roundtable with these young people. On the left-hand side is a family business where we had, in Costa Rica, also 2017, where we had roundtables with a family company. On the right also, that is another, it's a church, actually. It's a church that we had the roundtables for. And this is me with John. So these on the left-hand side are the countries that we have been serving so far, not John and myself, but I've been in Paraguay, Costa Rica, Ghana, and Switzerland. During the pandemic, what we did was we had roundtables virtually, and we had some also in the US, in Cote d'Ivoire, and in Malawi. So just to give you a taste that the people that we work with, I mean, it can be from children all the way to people in government, people in churches. I mean, it's the whole cross-section of society. So what are the roundtables? The methodology that we have been using are called roundtables. And what roundtables mean is that we sit around a round table, and I will say it's a bit like sitting around a fire outside in the courtyard. You know, so roundtables means that when we sit at round table, we are all at the same level. Nobody is higher or lower, and we all have a voice, and it's a two-way communication. You bring forward your ideas as to what value you are discussing, and people listen to you. So when we start a round table, normally we do it for a number of weeks, and then we move on to the second phase, which is reinforcements to see whether the values are sticking. And if they are sticking, we have a ways of recognizing people who are doing well and encouraging people who are lagging behind, but then in a very inclusive manner. So what we do is that we take the values of documents, of the walls, and infuse it into the hearts and minds of the people, right? So what are these areas that we work in? There are four main areas, which I have briefly described in the first part of the presentation, that we call self-government. What do I mean by self-government? Self-government establishes the foundational attributes needed for an individual to take responsibility for themselves. So this is the concept of rights versus responsibility. And with this structure, the individual is transformed from within to the outside, like we saw with the heart in John's picture that he illustrated. And what are some of the values that we use to bring this out is having the value of right thinking, having the value of attitude, and having the value of forgiveness, etc. So they are core values. We have 45 values, and depending on the level that we have, the individual or the company, we choose the values that relate to self-government. Then we move on to productivity, selecting from the 45 values. Productivity is designed to impact the mind of the leader. So once the foundation is set, we move on to the mind. And this changes the point of view. Many problems, especially those involving communication, can be solved with another perspective. And we can use the value of hard work, wise planning, dependability, etc. The third one level is the management and stewardship. Management and stewardship helps to establish the will of the individual. The essence of stewardship stresses the importance of being able to make changes happen by becoming, I just want to underline that word, becoming an agent of change in all that one does and say. So this brings about honesty, humility, generosity, and these are the values and others that we use to create trust. And once that is in place, you as a leader, you start really enjoying the favor and influence as a leader. You have this personal power for greater position and power. You focus on building relationship that brings about loyalty, trust, and commitment. Some of the values that we use are understanding people, developing people, and listening to people, etc., etc. So these are the ways that we do that. And what the initiative that we do have at CTL is called the Love It Initiative, which is an acronym for Living Our Values Intentionally Every Day. Living our values intentionally every day. And these can be applied, as I said, to individuals, families, businesses, churches, mosques, media houses, education, you name it. So if you want to learn more about this, you can reach out to Sam, these are his contacts, or myself. So thank you very much. And this is the end of the presentation, and we are open for questions.
Very much, Sarah. Thank you so much. I just want to, before we go into the questions, just want to share a couple of, emphasize a couple of points that Sarah has made already. The essence of value-based transformation in leadership is to build character. Because when your character, it's your character that makes you bigger on the inside than on the outside. A lot of the time we are looking at the outside, the reputation, how people see us, and that is more important to us than our inner character. So the character is important. It's not going to be easy to move from, where we are to a bigger inside, because there's always this tension between the voice and the outer voice. Whilst your inner voice wants to make you bigger on the inside, there's an outer voice that wants to make you bigger on the outside. So it's a showmanship. It's what people see. We are protecting our reputations and so forth. So we can break all the value rules just to show the world that we are good. But eventually it comes down. The voice you listen to between the voice on the inside and the voice on the outside is what will determine how big or bigger you become. The outer voice encourages you to appear bigger on the outside, but that is often at the expense of who you truly are. And we want to encourage you to do that. Sarah has talked about the value-based transformational program that we have. And the idea here is to help organizations to move your values from the walls into the hearts of people to make sure that the people are able to live the values that you choose for yourself. And this process is very well tested. And as they go through the roundtables, and we are open to help any leader on the call who wants to transform. Ladies and gentlemen, as a village boy, I just want to conclude this presentation with a short story. There's a merchant who went, and I found this story just this week, you know, through one WhatsApp message, and some of you may have seen it. A merchant went out to buy a horse, negotiated very hard, and got a good price for the horse. He brought the horse home and gave the horse to the servant. And as the servant was trying to, unpack things, he finds these jewels, diamonds, hidden, on the kerchief of the horse. And he calls the master and says, "Oh, you bought a horse and you got a lot of diamonds to it." And the merchant says, "Well, I didn't know these things were there. So let me take it back to the owner because he did not sell this to me." The servant says, "Oh, but nobody will know that, he's gone and he doesn't know where you are. Why do you worry yourself?" The merchant says, "No, let me just take it back." The merchant went, looked for the owner of the horse from whom he bought, the seller, and gave him the diamonds. And the owner was like, "I'm so grateful. I've been looking for you everywhere and you're such a good man. So you take some of the diamonds." And he says, no, I pay a good price for it, for the horse, and that's okay for me." The seller would not budge. He insisted. The merchant says, "Well, by the way, before I brought you the diamond, I took the two most valuable out of them." Then the seller was like, "You took the most valuable out of them? How could you do that?" Then he started counting all the diamonds. And after counting all the diamonds, he found that everything was intact. Then he goes to this buyer merchant and says, "You said you took two of the most valuable of the diamonds, but they are all intact here." He says, "Well, I took the most valuable, and that is to say, I took honesty and self-respect. By giving these diamonds back to you, I have chosen honesty and self-respect." Leaders who choose values as a foundation for their leadership are choosing, they are voting for honesty and self-respect. Listen to the inner voice of values that makes you bigger on the inside rather than the outer voice of, the world that will make you bigger on the outside, but which in the end would collapse your leadership and your organization. I want to thank Sarah so much for leading these discussions. We are ready to take your questions, but I want to just mention to you all on the call that we have the John C. Maxwell Premier Leadership Conference coming up. Live to Lead is on October 9th. And if you have not already bought your ticket, then you are missing a lot because those who have already bought their ticket are actually enjoying. There are a number of bonus lessons on leadership from previous Live to Lead that people have paid, hard money to go and buy, which are being offered free. So immediately you register, there are about 16 or so leadership videos that you have for free. The price for the conference is only $79. And let's say 475 or so cities. Previous years when we held it was 500 cities. This year it's virtual and you have a special personalized environment to learn about leadership. And Sarah mentioned a part of John's book. Actually, John is going to speak on the subject of changing your world through transformation. His new book, he's going to share those ideas for free. You may not have to buy the book when it comes out. If you just buy a ticket and join us at the Live to Lead, because John is going to speak on the subject of transformation, and it is absolutely important. So thank you, everybody. And we will now go to the Q&A, but I see some comments already. Thank you for the presentation, Sarah. Can you please share with us the major value that a leader must have? That's one question, so note that. I'm picking that from the chat box. Thanks very much for this inspiring and splendid presentation. That is from Margaret. And then a few others in the chat box. Now let's go to the other questions. From Mr. Odrokwat, he says, should a leader feel jealous if he or she realizes that a colleague wants to be like him? Should a leader feel jealous? So that's the second question. The first one was, what is the most important values the leader should have? The next question, Sarah, for you is, how are values formed? How are values formed? Why do they change? And how do they influence attitudes and actions? That is from Eric Amwaku. So I will let you deal with those ones, and then I think there's another question. Then we would
Thank you very much. I'll take the first one that says that I should share one major value that a leader must have. There are 45 plus values and still counting. So, okay, if you want to start, I will just say start first by using the value of listening, because when we listen very well, then we are able to relate better. So start with that, but I wouldn't say that is the most important one. All the values are important dependent on which phase of life that you find yourself in, and in the situation that you find yourself in as a leader. So yeah,
Sarah, if I may chip in, maybe the most important value, one most important value for a leader is to know that there is no one value, there are more. So if you can understand that there is not one value, but there are more, that is the value of learning, you would be a great leader. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And then should the leader feel jealous if he or she realizes a colleague wants to be like him? I mean, I don't think I will feel jealous. I will just find out from the person why he or she wants to be like him. Definitely, I am standing out as a role model for the person. So as a leader, communication, have a talk with a person to see how you can even help him or her to develop, because as leaders, we develop others. So you can be a mentor to that person and bring him or her to the next level. You can groom even her or him to become for succession planning, who knows? So that is a great way of, I guess, people seeing the good in you. So don't be jealous. I don't know what Sam thinks.
Well, Sarah, I think you should rather be happy, because if you're truly a leader, the essence of your leadership is to work yourself out of the job. True leaders want to move on. Your leadership is tested when you're not there. Your leadership is tested by your legacy, and your legacy is who is succeeding you. So if somebody really wants to be like you, if it is positive, if your character that you have exhibited is positive, then you should be grateful that somebody wants to be like you. Help him to become even better than you, so he can build on whatever you did. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. And then how are values formed? Why they change and how they influence attitude and actions? This is a great question. Yes, values are formed. I mean, when we're growing up, we grow up with our parents or in an environment where somebody is the parent figure. So we pick up the values from our environment. before we grow up. And then when we go to school, also we pick up values from our peers and people that we relate to. Why they change? Yes, they do change, because even for organizations, you see that from time to time, you have to re-evaluate and refine and get new values as to where the world is moving, trends that is happening in the environment. You have to adapt to it. For example, I will say right now, some people in companies do not really have the sense of risk management, the value for risk. So what has happened in our world now with the pandemic has really brought that value of risk assessment into the forefront. So as you grow, definitely when you are faced with something or the life stage that you find yourself, you will need to adapt. And how they influence attitudes and actions. Yes, values do, just like Sam explained about this merchant who, who went to buy this horse. It really influenced his attitude, I mean, his value of honesty that was really put into play, in the sense that, what do you call it? The servant was saying, hey, you keep it, the guy will not find you. But the deep, what do you call it? The deep sense of the value of honesty really spoke sense to him. And that is what translated into his attitude to go out and meet up with the person who sold him the horse. So definitely values do influence attitude and our actions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. The next question, is it possible for any organization or group to invite you to speak to its members? If yes, how? Also, if someone wishes to offer a voluntary service to be part of your organization or your organizing team, how does one go about it? So that's the first question there. Please, should a leader have a limit to the spirit of volunteerism in her operation? Should a leader have a limit to the spirit of volunteerism in his operations? So that's the second question. Third question I have here is that most often organizations do all they can to win, to the extent that they are willing to sacrifice their own values. That is why in Ghana, organizational values are more often seen on the wall decor. A colleague of mine who reported his company to Yoko for tax, I think it's tax evasions, let me see, 1 minute. A colleague of mine who reported for tax malpractices got fired for leaking company secrecy. What should a millennial do? All right, so take those ones and then let's see if there are more.
Yes, okay, yes. The first one is yes, it's possible to invite us to come and speak to the members of your organization. I have my details for you to connect with me at the end of the presentation. I'll send that to you, and you can reach out to us by email or by WhatsApp. I think my details are there. And also, if someone wants to offer, certainly reach out to me and we'll talk about it and see how you can help in moving this movement forward. So please, should a leader have a limit to the spirit of volunteerism in his or her operations? I don't know what volunteerism that is, but what I will say is that dependent on your personality, please don't burn yourself out. You have to find a balance also in the way that you implement self-care, because sometimes some of us who really like to give, we keep on doing so, and before we realize we are burnt out. So there's a balance that needs to be struck. if you have a coach or you have a mentor or someone who is who can help you strike that balance, give you, let me say, an accountability partner, that will be helpful. Okay, so most often organizations do all they can to win, to the extent that they sacrifice their own values. That's why in Ghana, okay, yes, that's a comment then. Okay, all right. And a colleague,
there's a question under it, yeah.
Yeah, and a colleague of mine who reported his company to Yoko for tax immunity got fired. Okay, yeah, that is a big blow, but he got his self-respect and his honesty. As millennials, what I will say is that I remember when we were in Paraguay and Costa Rica, especially Paraguay, 35% of the population were old. And then they have no middle, I will say middle-aged people, because there was a war or so, and therefore it's the grandparents and then the millennials. So the next people who are supposed to leave the country are the millennials. And I must say that they worked so much hand in hand with us. They were doing the translation because it's a Spanish country. However, on the third or fourth time that we went out to do the training, before we realized these people really stepped forward. So we, the trainers, we stepped behind and let them run the training. They had really imbibed these values, that they are living it out, and they were training people. So for us, it was a very inspiring time for us, in the sense that we saw that the country had a future. The young people were taking things in their hands to turn things around. So millennials, what I'll say to you is that do not give up. Yes, some of us have failed. I will say the generations before you have failed you, but that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice your values, because in the long run, values really pay off.
Sarah, I just want to add a bit onto that. I don't know if the circumstances, but depending upon the circumstance, the first approach for a millennial should not be to go and report. Now, what Sarah was talking about, and when he's talking about the values, when he was talking, he talked about you influencing, you setting the pace. When you are in an organization and things are not going well, your job is to try to change. Your first step is to discuss. Your first step is to try to get a hearing why things are going and try to change from within. It is not always easy to do that. We talk about values, helping the organization to make the selection, but individuals also, when you know the organizational values, you will be able to know whether you want to work with that organization. So it depending upon, we don't have all the facts here, so we may not be able to say whether it was right or wrong to report, but what we know is that principles of influence and leading up, that is called leading up. When you are lower in the organization and there are situations like this, you find the best way to communicate within the organization and try to see if the practices that are wrong can be changed. And there you'll be having your influence. If you try and it's not going to work, then you find the best way. But you cannot go there and report the organization to Yoko and hope to stay in that organization. So when you were doing that, you were ready to go out, okay? So you should be ready to go out before you take that action, which for me was a bit of a stream. Thank you. Sarah, you can go on to the next question. Okay, so I think we've answered that. The next question is, why don't you do roundtables in schools where we have young people who will become leaders of tomorrow? Is it not better to start putting these values in people very early when they are still young? That's the first one. Second.
Yeah, let me take that straight away. That's an excellent way. That's really an excellent question, because yes, we do it in schools also. So we are doing it across, if you looked at some of my, the pictures that I showed, it was with young people. So we have a program for young people. In my church over here, I'm starting even a program with the young people over here to instill the values in them. So absolutely, I mean, any school who is willing to work with us, we are open and will come in and do so. So absolutely, yeah.
And actually last year we had a group of private school owners, and Sarah and I were together. We helped them with roundtables and gave them some ideas on how private owners of private schools, some owners of private schools could also be trained. We trained some of them to be able to do roundtables in their school. Sarah, we need to follow up to see how they're doing with that, with the information. So it is important that we start with young people, especially because the young people are not getting good example, and that is where the young people have a dilemma. When you give them the values from, but everything they are seeing on the TV, on the radio every day as their adults are misbehaving. So if we, the adults, are misbehaving and they are not leading examples, living by examples, then the young people would get confused. So you cannot tell them that they have to live honestly when the next morning their minister is stealing and everybody says stealing is fine, don't touch him. When the next morning his MP is insulting everybody on TV and radio and they are fighting, MPs and leaders are fighting, and then you go and tell the young people fighting is not good. So we, the leaders, all of us, should begin setting the right examples so that when these values are taught to the young people, they will see it also in us. Otherwise, we create a total confusion in their minds and the results will not be as desired. But we have to start from the young ones. Thank you. All right, the next question was, what do you do when your leader is not interested in the development of his subordinates? Okay, the next question is, how do you handle a senior staff who was interested in the position you occupy, but you were picked to head instead of him, and he has to take instruction from you, but his attitude towards you is always suspicious? So that is your second question, Sarah. The next question is, how do you describe a leader whose personal values are not always in tandem with the corporate values? For example, leader who sees humility as a weakness rather than a strength. So take those three, and then I think we can take a few more.
Okay.
And
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So if your leader is not interested in developing you, you don't wait for your leader. You know, right now we live in an age where, I mean, you can go even on the internet and everything is free. Most things are free. You should not wait for your leader to determine your development. You have to take your future into your own hands. Yes, I did work with the UN for quite a long time. It got to a time that I saw, hey, listen, I want to develop myself, but my organization is not giving me the opportunity. So what did I do? I took money out of my own pocket. I mean, I had to really save and do what I wanted to do. You don't have to wait for your leader or your organization. If God gave you a dream in your heart for you to do something, He gave it to you. So you have to find ways and means to do it. And when I say ways and means, value-based ways and means, not anything. And most things are really, really, I mean, free on the internet. You are able to buy data for your phone. You can go on the internet and find things that interest you and learn. Or find yourself mentors, get in touch with Mr. Ayim at CTL.
Come to the leadership platform. It is free.
Yes.
Buy a ticket to go to Live to Lead, and you will learn more.
Exactly. There are lots of people who are out there doing good work, mentoring people, training them in Ghana, It happens all the time, and I know of quite a lot of people. So contact Mr. Im. Definitely he will lead you, or even send me an email and we'll talk about that. Don't wait for your leader. Once that he starts seeing that you are improving, and get him on board when you learn something, and you can even teach him, but in a very subtle way. You don't have to be direct. He's your leader. He can learn one or two from you, okay? You can lead him. We have something that we call the 360 degrees leader, that you can lead from anywhere. You don't have to be at the top to lead anyone. So once you have improved yourself, share it with your peers, people down, and some people who are up. And once that your influence starts going around, your leader will be paying heed to you. Okay, so don't let that intimidate you. And then what is the next question? How do you handle...
You are picked to head your organization.
And then someone
who wanted the same job is now reporting to you. How do you handle it? His attitude towards you is suspicious. Suspicious,
yes. Okay. How long has that been? I would like to have some more information about it, but it's communication, and also set out to make sure that you give him all the support that his job easier. And I mean, you are the leader. It doesn't mean that you have to lord it over him. As a leader, how can you get engagement and get trust from your people that you work with? There's a saying that says that before you ask somebody for a hand, you have to be able to give that person some care or your heart. So we are human beings. When you come with empathy and with sincerity, yes, sometimes you need to be, what do you call it, circumspect. Use your intuition also. We have something that is called intuition. That's one of the laws of a leader, the law of intuition. Your intuition also helps you to make the right decisions. So that's what I can say. Sam, I don't know whether you want to add something to that.
Yes, we did a couple of weeks ago. We go to the leadership platform and look for leading with emotional intelligence. The leadership platform. We have all these things we're doing are recorded. We have the previous editions recorded on our platform, ctl-africa.com. And if you go to our leadership platform, you'll find the lessons we learn about emotional intelligence. Know the people. I was in a situation where I was supposed to have the job, and the board decided that I was too young for it. They brought somebody who was older, but who was not very qualified. But from the one, he called me and sat me down and said, Sam, you know that this job, I don't know how to do it. These people just want me here because of my age. So you are going to do this work for me. I know you're going to do it. Everywhere I go, I'll tell them you did the work. And that's what he did. I mean, he worked together. He did not rub it in my face. And sometimes when you are in this position, you have to respect the person. You have to, like Sarah said, communicate with the person. You have to be sensitive to their feelings and, you know, respect where they can contribute and bring them on board to your team. And don't, you know, rub it in their face. And I'm sure if you communicate well and relate better, they will serve you very well. All right, the next one, the last one, how do you describe a leader whose personal values are not always in tandem with corporate values? For example, a leader who sees humility as a weakness.
Okay, you know, we all have different personality styles. First of all, his values are not in tandem with the corporate values. So that's an issue. He will have to work it out. I don't know how you can influence him to really live out the corporate values. That will have to come from above you. However, what I will say is that when he sees that you have a humility, that value of humility, and he sees that as a weakness rather than a strength, it depends also on your personality and his personality. And this is where personality styles comes in. If he is, let's say, somebody who is more direct than you, who may be somebody who is more humble or subservient, you have to know how to communicate or speak his language. You know, Sam, I'm talking a little bit about DISC. Speak his language, that your humility does not become a disadvantage to you. If he is a direct person, when you speak to him, you have to communicate along the lines where your message or communication can land. Okay, that way your humility is not a handicap for you. And when you meet with other people who are your personality type and they are humble, you can relate to them on that level. So my message to you is that relate to him how he would like to be related to. That is what we call the platinum rule. The platinum rule says you speak or you communicate with the person how the person will be able to receive that sort of communication. Yes.
All right. So and on that, the first thing also to add is that, I mean, I don't know the level of weight of this leader, but assuming he's the CEO, or if you're leading an organization and your values are in conflict with that organization's values, you have two options. You have the first option is to quit. The second option is to adapt. Because, and we said the values, corporate values help with the selection of the people, and also the corporate values should help you select the organization. So when you are applying for a job in an organization, look for their values. If their values are not in line with your personal values and you push yourself into that organization, you're going to have a conflict. And if you're not in a position to be able to change those values there, then you either adopt to those values, or you quit, especially if the values are so important to you that you don't want to compromise on. So that's what we say. I'll add to what Sarah has said. The next question is, has there been any situation where you realize that your training didn't have the expected effect after some time? That is a round table. And if an organization is not living up to its value, what should the leadership do? Example, the police. Sarah, you are in trouble here. You are in trouble here. All right, so two questions there. Now, how do you cope with a manager who has no regard for, how do you cope with a manager who has no regard for his followers' reaction towards his inhumane attitude at work, especially when he is filled up with just the position? Okay, so there are three questions there. If the organization is not living up to its what do you do? All right, I think I have skipped one, but take those three. Okay. There's one last one, then we'll close.
Okay, the training. If the training, what do I do when I realize the training didn't have the expected effect? What I would say is that the round table is a process. Transformation is a process, right? And you can't expect that doing just one training. Training, I will say, is an event. Transformation is a process. So the fact that maybe you have done one training and it hasn't taken effect doesn't mean that, what do you call it? The training has failed. You have to go through the whole process. That's why I did say that we have phases. We start with the roundtables. After a certain number of weeks or months, we go back and we do the reinforcement. and then we go back again. So normally when I do these type of trainings, or long before even I started working on roundtables, whatever training that I do it as a process over 6 months or 9 months. And for the roundtables, what is beautiful about a roundtable is that when you are doing these facilitation over a period of time, before you pull out, you have trained the people, you have transferred and empowered them to go along without you. We are not like consultants that come and then we have to stay year after year. We come in to really deliver these training and to make sure that you are transformed, that you can go ahead and transform other people in your organization, in your church, in your family, wherever you find yourself. So we do that facilitation to ensure that we pass on everything that is in us to ensure that there is sustainability. So that's what I can say for the time being. And one story that I can give to you is about Colombia. The people who developed the system of methodology. In Colombia, the prisons, they had this rate that people were killed a lot in the prisons because you have all these drug lords in the prisons, and they even live there like kings or whatever. So a lot of prisoners were being killed. And this was developed to help not even with the prisoners, but with the guards, because the guards also got corrupted because all these inmates were bribing them. And because they started doing the roundtables, over time, the prisoners saw this difference in the guards, that they were not accepting bribes anymore, and whatever they wanted to achieve, they were being blocked. So they said to the authorities that they wanted to be part of the program. And within a period of 6 months, the killing of about 90 people dropped down to half. And the last time I heard about it, it has dropped down to 1 a day. The change have been continuously going on. It was over a period of time. And what some of the inmates were saying, listen, if we had had this training in the first place, we would not have landed in this prison. So it works, but it takes time.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. If an organization is not living by 8 values, what should the leadership do? Example, the police.
The police. I think, Sam, you and I will have to go and work with the police to see whether we can help them. But it will have to come from the top. And if you remember when let me just put up the slide for John. 1 second, I'll quickly share that slide.
Yeah, we have a few minutes to the top of the hour, so yeah. I think we'll take it and then.
Yeah, I'll quickly share the slide again. Okay, so if you look at the slide, you see the waterfall coming from the top. When water falls from the top, it has more power and more punch. So the authorities at the police, it will have to come from the top. If they really enforce this and they start, it will work. But I don't know whether you know somebody in the police where we can work with the person. We are willing to work if they are willing to work with us. So yeah. That's all that I can say.
It takes willingness and determination, and it takes from the top. Absolutely important. The next question, the next question is, if truthfulness is seen as a value, why are some leaders tasked to swear on oath of secrecy, Is there any truth in keeping secrets?
Sam,
all right.
Yeah, Sam, you are a lawyer, so this one you have to answer.
All right, so if truthfulness is a value, why are some leaders tasked to swear oath of secrecy? Well, actually keeping confidentiality is also a value, because there are some situations where you are entrusted with some information and you are given that information because of your position of trust and confidence, and you are supposed to keep that trust. It's absolutely important. Now, the well system's way of doing it is to think that once you swear an oath, then you will keep it. Well, we know that as lawyers, we go to the court, people swear on the Bible or the Quran and they still tell a lie. So as we've said, that is the outside. The outside is telling you swear an oath. But the best oath is within yourself. It's internal, the inside voice. If you listen to the inside voice and you have truthfulness as your value, then whether or not you swear an oath, you'll be truthful. So that is what I would say to that. The last question for you, Sarah, how do you cope with a senior manager who has no regard for his followers' reaction to his inhumane attitude to work, especially when he is filled just with position? All right, this is the last one because we would then, we just have
perfect. Okay, so thank you for this question. First of all, I don't know whether you did tune in to when we had a call with Dr. Pebby, when he spoke about
leading with self-awareness.
Self-awareness. So obviously this leader is really not self-aware. And secondly, on the issue of emotional intelligence, you know, he is emotionally unintelligent at the moment. So because he's not self-aware of this, I don't know how somebody could bring this to his self-awareness. Secondly, when you did mention also about position, yes, he is there as a boss because of the position. That is the first level of leadership, it's just position. And when you are just there at the first level of position, you really do not have influence. It's the position that has given you that power. And therefore, if he will need to improve upon his self-awareness and his emotional intelligence before anything can be done.
All right, thank you very much. And that's the last question. And guys, I want you to share with us your learning, put your your takeaways. What is their best? What are you going to do differently? What have you learned today? Put it in the chat box, and we will be very happy to learn from you. So on that note, we want to thank everybody. Sarah, you want to make some closing remark?
Yes, what I want to say is that thank you all so much for coming to be with us this evening, and we hope that whatever we have shared, you'll be able to implement one or two values already. I saw that a lot of you were listening, so already you are really good at listening, so continue with that. And if you need us to really work with you, you have our details. The slides will be shared and you can get in touch with us even at the CTL email address. Okay.
All right, thank you, Sarah, very much. And once again, remind you of Live to Lead. We are only 12 days away. People are already learning. Please buy your ticket. Next week on this platform, we will have Amos Kevin Annan to speak to us on leadership transformation begins with the home. How do you make your home a place for grooming leaders? And that is going to be very interesting. Amos is a very, very interesting, knowledgeable expert on home and marriage and family life. And he organizes this training for husbands and wives and improve their marriages and their home. You don't want to miss this one, which is the last one before Live to Lead on the 19th. Thank you very much, everybody. Put your learnings in the chat box. We love you. We thank you. And we thank God, the Almighty, for taking us through this learning. And we pray that God would help us to live these values in our lives and in our organization. Thank you for joining us. Join us next week on the leadership platform. See you. God be with you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Kofi. Thank you, Priscilla. And thank you, Hawa, all my team members for being there and making the platform active and a place of learning. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Step into leadership. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever experienced something so wonderful that you just wish that you could involve more of your friends into that experience? Well, Live to Lead is a life changer when it comes to helping you and your team develop your leadership skills and better afford to help and add value to the people of your community. And what's exciting is, I know how good it is, and this year for the very first time we're going virtual. What does that mean? That means thousands of people who could not maybe attend the live event are now, through the comfort of their own home on their computer, going to be able to participate and have a ticket and be part of the Live to Lead conference. You do not want to miss this. We're inviting you to learn from a few intentional people that I've invited to share the stage.
Steve Harvey, Kat Cole, Alan Mulally, Farida Bedwe, Alfred Baku, Craig Groeschel.
They will all be joining me, and let me tell you why I picked these people. This is not a time for an L2L just to have just people who can speak well. We have to have leaders who model how to overcome adversity well and will help you throughout this incredible crisis. At our virtual event, there will be opportunities to participate in Q&A, live chat with other growth-minded leaders, engage in polls and other audience engagement tools so that you're a part of the conversation. We've made this so not only can you join, but your team could join with us also. So join me as we bring you Live to Lead, a virtual event, and together, let's make the most of this year. Let's lead with intentionality.